Welcome on the live show. This is your host, Adnan Mixud. Excited to come on this live broadcast today. We have a very wonderful guest from Dallas area. Her name is Wendy Hardin, awesome woman of God. And just talking to her, you can just tell that she loves Jesus and she loves people. So without any further delay, I'm going to bring Wendy Hardin. Do I say your last name correct?
Oui, c'est parfait alors. It's perfect.
Awesome. Perfect. Well, take a moment and introduce yourself. Who is Wendy?
Bonjour à tout le monde. Je m'appelle Wendy Hardin. Je suis professeure, mais je suis la fille de Dieu, du monde. My name is Wendy Hardin. I am the daughter of the King Most High, and I love Jesus with all my heart. And it's an honor to be here with everyone. And I'm so grateful to Adnan Muksud, our lovely host. Thank you so much, Adnan.
Thank you. Wonderful. Thank you so much, Wendy. I'm very impressed that you pronounced my last name very well. That's how exactly it's pronounced. You're
Oh, I'm
awesome.
so glad.
Wow. So, Wendy, would you please take a moment and share your personal testimony and how the Lord has worked in your life?
Absolutely. You know, as a child, Adnan, I was a pretty stubborn young lady. And even though I had been in Sunday school since the age of 2 years old, and we attended the Methodist church, it wasn't until I was 15 that I actually surrendered my heart to the Lord. I was at a retreat for athletes for high school, and it was called Fellowship of Christian Athletes. And we were at a college, we were at Colorado State University. And they had just introduced this idea of reading the word every day. And I was reading in Proverbs 3:5. And that became my life verse. And the Lord literally, it was trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. And that is still so applicable to my day to day living. And the Lord literally just gripped my heart and said, you know, won't you trust me? And it was a lot like so many other things in our lives. Like we were afraid to give up, you know, our sovereignty, right? I can remember being 12 years old, someone witnessed to me, and deep down I was like, oh, I want to, but then I won't be in charge anymore. Well, from 12 years old to 15 years old, I decided, you know what? Being in charge isn't worth it. It's a fallacy. And I wanted to give everything I had to the Lord and let Him be my guide. And that's what I did when I was 15. And it was at a retreat. And, you know, since then, I've had so many different challenges. We all do, right? But I can honestly say that He is my joy. He's my rock. He's my father. He's everything to me. So, anyway, it's an honor to be here, and it's an honor to share this story. There's a part two to the story, um, and it's a very it's different, you know. The day that I was saved, the Lord actually came and visited me in an open vision. I didn't even have vocabulary for what that was at the time. And I just saw a burst of flames, and I hopped out of that dorm bedroom bed and I got to my knees as fast as I could, and I just prayed feverishly. And then pretty soon it abated, and I thanked the Lord and I went to sleep. Um, but I really didn't know what to make of it back then. Again, we were in a very much a United Methodist church. Nothing wrong with that church, but I just didn't have the vocabulary or the knowledge for what that was. And through the years, we were members of a Baptist church and then a non-denominational. And to this day, I'm still so grateful because I believe that was a sign or a signal to me of Him purifying my heart, yeah, just purifying me in that moment. But that's just what I believe, and I'm just grateful for the experience, honestly.
Absolutely. Wow. Thank you so much for sharing that. What were
Sure.
some key moments where you saw God's faithfulness and breakthrough in your life?
Wow, that's such a great question. I think one of the biggest, there have been probably three areas of my life. The first area would be spiritually that I can hear his voice. And originally, I had asked for visions and for words. And I literally sat one day silently and still, be still and know that I'm the Lord. And I waited for an hour and nothing happened. I was like, oh. And then one day I said to the Lord, you know what, Lord? I've prayed my prayer list. What's on your heart? And he gave me a word of knowledge. He showed me a Band-Aid on a heart. He showed me a baseball field in the background. And he gave me a name, a boy's name. And I went back into the conference we were at, and there was a lady there that I didn't know. She was seated next to me in the small group. And we started chit-chatting. We were waiting for the rest of the group to come join us. And I said, hey. And she's like, I'm like, tell me about your children. And sure enough, I was able to relay to her the word that the Lord had given me, that her son's baseball heart was broken. And turns out she had a 6-year-old, and it was his first baseball game, and she wasn't there. And it was such a word of encouragement to her as a believer to get plugged in, that there were deeper things of the Lord that we need to reach into, that we can definitely have if we just ask for it. And so spiritually, there's more, right? That's one area of the life that my life that the Lord has shown himself to be faithful. And the second area is God has given me an enormous faith component. And by this, um, it originally started in I guess, as a child, our parents shared with us that we were adopted and said that we were chosen, and it showed us so much unconditional love. We had a great childhood. And yet I didn't know my biological background, but I had the faith to know that one day I would. And God is faithful. He's shown that to be true. And he's just given me such an abundance of faith in health, in my profession, in my family, just in so many levels of that, really. So, really, spiritually, that God connects with us at a close level, that he really does care about us.
Yeah.
And two, that he gives us his faith. He gives us the ability to believe and to rise higher than we could even dream for ourselves. It's so
100%.
fun to go ahead.
I want to know, Wendy, that you were adopted, but your adopted mom always called you that you're special because we chose you. And then also, how did you? That's the second question. How did you end up finding your, biological parents? Was it like a 21Me DNA test or stuff?
It was. It was. So I was telling a mentor in the church about where I was, and she shared with me that she did a DNA test. And I said, oh, really? You mean you did that? And I mean, it just seemed out of reach. It seemed like, oh, should I do that? I didn't know if morally it would be okay. She was like, if you want to know, it's okay, do it. And so with that, I happily sent in and didn't know what I would find. When the results came back, I remember getting on a voicemail that I had set up because that you could have it at that time. You could have it done on a voicemail, like they could call you in, and they did. They told me that I was 50% Norwegian and 50% Russian Jew. Ashkenazi Jew, I think is the word they use. But anyway, you could have pushed me over with a feather. I mean, I had no idea. And a few years later, probably within 2 years, I was able to meet my brother. I have two siblings on my mother's side, and I have three on my father's side. And it was so beautiful the way the Lord orchestrated all of that to come together. We actually got to meet and we got to share our lives, to share what we've been through, what we're looking forward to. I got to hear his dreams, and the Lord just really gifted me that. Not that I needed a replacement, but I needed a face. I needed a connection. There literally was a scrapbook that my brother gave to me. And so I have the generations of long ago in my hands now to look at. So it's been a blessing, a real blessing.
Oh, that is fantastic. I can only imagine. But your journey, part of your journey took you to France. And you mentioned like you're full of interesting things and people can learn about you, but then also you're a fast learner. And within a 1 year, you learn French and you live in France and you lived in other parts of the world. But I just want to know your France, your French. How did that develop? The language learning interest, and you were also talking about recently. There's a revival is taking place in France. What do you know?
Oh man, that revival is so exciting. I'm so glad you asked about that. I have a friend named Jim, and he actually got to live in Switzerland and spend time in France. And I know missionaries that have been talking about the revival that's occurring. And I've seen some videos, and it's awesome. It's so awesome to see believers coming together. When I was there, my experience was completely different. I literally had my neighbors tell me, "Oh, you're going to France? Ugh, they're not believers there. Like, we're kind of scared for you." And I was, what did I know? I was 19 at the time planning my trip and ended up there when I was 20. And I said, you know what? I'm going to go. I said, I have God. I have my Bible. I can pray. I'll find a church. And they just kind of went, okay, good luck. And you know what? It was the best thing that could have ever happened to me. The girl that I had befriended at my university, so my professor, he said, Wendy, will you help me out? I said, sure. He said, will you make friends with these girls? They need someone to show them around town. They need to go to the grocery store. Can you introduce them to some people, network? I said, absolutely. Well, in the midst of all that networking, this girl, Corinne, she was fabulous, and we became fast friends. We are still friends and still in touch to this day. She's a life coach or a professional coach, and she lives south of Paris. Anyway, she called me up. This is before I actually went to France. She called me up and she said, listen, I'm so glad you're coming to France, but I can't be your roommate. And I was stunned. I thought, what? What am I going to do? I don't know anyone there. I'm scared. I'm alone. You're not going to help me. She says, no, no, no. I'll help you. I can't live with anybody. And I said, okay. So I went on a long jog in the rain. Fortunately, I have a mom who's very wise. And she said to me, she said, you know what? She said, how many people do you know that actually have been to France? And I was like, yeah, I don't. She said, just go. She goes, I said, well, that's not responsible. I can't do that. So I have school. You'll have wasted all that money on, they were paying for my education. We got to be wise with, money. She said, no. She said, this is an experience of a lifetime. Just go. And I didn't know it then, but it actually transformed me. I was able to witness to people there. I was able to tell them that God was the reason for my joy. I was able to learn French, and I didn't know it, but years down the road, the French language actually determined my career. So it was a beautiful journey that God had in his heart since the beginning of time. First to create me, and then to send me to France. I mean, I was the daughter of a military kid, and I didn't know any French. I took a semester there at North Texas, and I had fun with it, but I didn't know how to talk. And furthermore, when I got there, Adnan, I refused to talk. I was scared. Were you like that when you were learning English? Did you ever get a little like stage fright?
Yes, absolutely. Because not when especially did not grew up, speaking it, you always have a back of your head if you're saying it correct, what they're gonna think and etc. But really, now I'm like at the stage where I don't really care, what anybody thinks, because language is really if as long as you're understanding what I'm saying, that's it, right? Because there's all sorts of language all around the world, but I think if you can speak it, that's impressive. Like if I can speak the much you can speak French, oh voila, I will do a great thing. I will just continue to like reach people across in the French world to see how I can cultivate a relationship there. Yeah.
But what's fascinating to me is you speak, is it Uduru? How do you
Urdu,
say it?
yes, Urdu.
And so is that the main language of your land, or are there several dialects? How does that work?
So the national language of Pakistan is Urdu. So URDU, and that's the national language. But then it's very similar to Hindi as well. The only the difference with the Hindi and Urdu is like Urdu is written like Arabic.
Oh,
Yes, and Hindi is like I feel scribbled. Like I can't ever understand or read Hindi, but if you speak it to me, I will get it. It's like somebody told me it's like German and Austrian. Like they can
really?
understand each other, but they can not. Like if you write it, they will not understand. It's like you can understand Spanish, but can you read Spanish? Probably not. Uh,
Not really. I don't even know if
yes.
I can understand it. I know a couple of words.
Yes, yeah. So that's my thinking is, but also overall, it's a great art to be able to speak English, and I think I'm still learning some of the words. Often people would ask me, "Do you first think in Urdu and then you speak English?" I said, "No, I just speak English." It's like
Right,
you know what I'm
right.
saying? Like you're thinking about it in your own language, and then you're like, "Let me just get it in." Like, no,
Do
I
you
think I've been.
remember do you
Mhm,
remember
go
the first time I'm sorry, I just have to know. So do you
sure.
remember the first time that you dreamed in English and you woke up? How did that make you feel?
That's a good one. That's a good one. I actually always now it's fascinating to me. Uh, the very first time when I moved to America, I was dreaming in I was asking myself in Urdu, is like, am I really in America? You know,
Oh,
because I was quite young when I came to America, and then you just l- learn to live and learn to even dream in English. But I really don't like. I can't really tell you like whenever I dream is that in English or Urdu. Never thought of that. Yeah, but maybe
oh,
I'll be
that's
intentional
great.
next time.
Was it intimidating to come to America, or had it been your dream all along?
It's always been growing up. Did not even know America existed
Wow.
because like we did not learn it in geographicals, like not people much talked about it. And I came to know America, I think, at the age 12, 13, 14. Yeah, I should have had
Wow.
known before, I think. But then also, I started speaking. Used to speak very broken English at the age probably 16. Before 16, I didn't even. I could only say welcome and thank you. How are you? That's it.
So how did you learn? What taught you?
It's actually started because in the computer, when computer was my father he gave us a gift to all of us on a Christmas, a computer the kids could like now have access to computer back in 2000, I'll say 13 for 2012 or 13. And that's how we started learning about the computer, and then really English like fluently and understanding more vocabulary. It's really happened when I started reading Bible in English. So I remember my wife came to Pakistan, and she gifted me a Bible. I told her, hey, I would like to have a Bible in English. So I would just carry the Bible all over by faith, and now I decided that, you know what, I'm going to read in Urdu and I'm going to preach in read in English and preach in English.
Fascinating.
Yes, yes. But what about
Fascinating.
you? Did you read a Bible in French?
Yeah, I'm so glad you asked. I was just kind of reflecting. I it's a crazy story. You ready for another crazy story? So we were on our way to a field trip, and I was the French teacher, and I started making friends with the bus driver because she's at the
Mhm.
front of the bus, and she starts chatting with me, and I was telling her all about my experience in France, and she loved the French language, and she said, "Wow, I can't believe," and she was just hanging on all my stories, and I thought, "Oh, that was so beautiful. I loved making friends with the bus driver." Well, I want you to know, Adnan, the joke was on me. She was such a good friend to me. She brought me a giant box filled with books and two different Bibles, and they were in the French language. She
Oh,
gifted me
wow.
them. Yes.
Beautiful.
It
And
it touched my heart so much, and I kept them on my desk at school, and I read them. And I remember thinking, as I left teaching French, I thought, I wonder if I should just really start focusing on that now. Maybe that's what the Lord wants has for me, is maybe I should be digging into those Bibles, because it was so beautiful. Because one of them is very modern language, very today's French, and it has little cartoon characters kind of penciled in, kind of
mhm,
like the Good News Bible.
yeah, yes,
And then the other one is more like King James ish, more formal. So,
yeah. Wow,
yeah.
that's interesting. That's how. But you read a lot of French Bible, though. Did you, how did you? I should say, learn speaking French? Is by speaking, by listening, or by even reading majority of the time, or practicing?
That is how I practiced, was reading. I had to take a certain level of French. So I took two different classes. I had French 1 and French 2 at the college level. And I would go at 8 o'clock in the morning and finish at 4 o'clock every afternoon. It was like being in public school again. And I did that a whole semester, and I ended up with two levels of French. And that was all I had. We had learned a little bit of French in Ottawa when we were children. We were there for 3 or 4 years,
Yeah,
from the age of 5 to, I don't know, 8 or 9. But it was a secondary language. And my best friend was French Canadian, Sean
yeah,
Watson,
yeah,
and they were Catholic, and I learned a little bit from him, but not a lot. It was really truly by being in the culture.
yeah.
There's nothing like being
True.
saturated,
Yeah.
in the culture. And yeah, but when I first arrived to France, I was scared to talk. I
Yes.
was like, I don't want to make a mistake, because they'll correct you. They're
Same.
like, oh, do, 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 do.
No,
And I
but
did not want to be
here
corrected.
in America, people don't correct you. They always very encouraging. And that's
Ah,
what I really loved about Americans. They won't make a fun. In Pakistan, they will make fun of you if
oh,
you if you don't speak or mispronounce the word. They will make fun of you, like in Pakistan. And it's joking thing in Pakistan. It's not really
it's not
encouraging thing.
serious.
And even like your brothers or your sister, they will, like, make faces and say, oh, you try pronouncing this word. And that's really the bigger fear of a lot of Pakistani have, uh learning English. So that's really. But I want to ask you, like, for 2026 questions, what has the Lord been speaking to you in this season, or what you, or even 2026, you feel like God is leading you to do?
You know what? I really feel like right now, for me, the word for my life and for those around me, it's a fusion of two different words, and it's identity and restoration. He redeems all of us, and not just in the ways that we see where we have issues. He's continually redeeming us. And it's the renewal as we wash ourselves in his word, as we pray with him, as we witness to others, as we share our lives in community with others. And so I really feel like, for me, he's been solidifying my identity, but he's restoring the years that the locust has stolen. And I think that's not just for me. I think that's a blanket for the area that I'm in, for the people that I'm hearing stories from. I'm part of a group called City Fam, which is based out of Houston, where you are, and it's everywhere. It's in all the cities, and it's just a community of believers that meet twice a month. And if you don't have connection, look up City Fam, type it into your internet, and look up where a chapter of people are, and start hanging out with them. They're going to be volunteering. Our volunteer this month is going to be for a night to shine, to help special needs students have a prom, have a special night where they feel like they're special. It's called a night to shine. And so this is just one way for God to reveal his beauty. He restores from ashes and creates beauty. Just like you're talking about language being an art, it very much is. Interpretation, translation, there is a science part of it that is exact, but it's more of an art than anything, because you have to kind of read between the lines. A lot of times when people are talking, their words may not be exactly what they're saying. So it is an art. And anyway, I really think that's what this word is for this year, that he's restoring and he's creating beauty
Yeah.
from ashes. Yeah,
I
for
wanted
my
to
life anyway.
Absolutely. I wanted to go right into that. You're like about to come on that direction. So I wanted to ask you a word of encouragement as we coming close to the ending of this broadcast, a word of encouragement for those who are believing God for their own breakthrough that you may can share.
Yeah, you know what? I just want to encourage single moms. You know, years ago, I was in a very hard marriage, and I don't want to spend a lot of time there. I just want to say that I stepped out of the marriage, but I asked for God's blessing every step of the way. I said, Lord, if this isn't meant to be, stop it at any given moment, and I will go back to it. And the way that I made it through was on my knees, and I was in church, and I was in His Word. And there's a quote from Mark Twain that I really believe that God gave me, and it was about the. It's not the size of the dog in the fight; it's the size of the fight in the dog. And I think about those little chihuahuas, and I think about the strength that they muster up, even though they're tiny, how strong they are and how loud their bite is, their bark. And God does that. He does that for us. We don't have to fight, but He will give us that strength. Philippians 4:13, I can do all things through Him who gives me strength. And I believe that's for many single women out there, whether you're in the midst of a divorce, whether you're a single mom and you've been divorced, or whether you're just maybe just recently divorced. God is there with you. He's inside of us, and His strength and His power and His wisdom is there for the taking. You just have to ask, just connect.
That is very, very good. Thank you so much. That was a very encouraging. I want to encourage our audience, those who are watching right now, that you can learn to trust God in the midst of a crisis. Even everything is falling apart, but when you trust God with all your heart and mind, and He will always open somebody say when door is closed, the window is open. So I will always say is that there's a window of opportunities open for you to step into your God given purpose, because sometimes it takes people like years to years to tap into who they are and even unleashing greatness. But I believe it's time and season for 2026. Don't let this year go by without you learning to be happy and trusting God in every circumstance and every step of the way, because you are a God's design, God's purposed. You're a God's vessel and God's messenger. And always be positive. Like I think Wendy, people sometimes get very negative and feeling self-esteem and the feeling that am I enough? Am I measuring up to the standards of the world? Or even like comparing constant in this digital world, you always comparing yourself. And I think if we just learn to trust God and be confident in our own skin, I think we can accomplish much than to trying to be something or pretending to be something that we are not. So I think it's time. I feel like even 2026 word is be you in Christ, who God's created you. Be the best version, of yourself. Continue to improve. It's not like you're gonna not excel. You're gonna excel, but continue just have an attitude and behavior for learning. And I want to encourage people, those who are watching right now, please feel free to share this video. I think it's somebody out there that who needs to watch this program or broadcast to hear from Wendy's perspective, how life can sometimes try to knock you down, but you to have a boldness inside you to, no matter how many times you knock down, you got to step up. You got to get back up on your feet and just fight the good fight of faith and finish the race in Jesus' name. Well, make sure you download Vision Television Network app on your Apple TV or Fire TV and iOS devices. You can also watch us on Roku and on satellite. And I want to encourage people to continue to share, invite your friends on so they can watch Vision Television Network as well 24/7 around the clock, because we have